These words adapted from Reverend Hannah Villeneuve. Why do we gather here? What's the point? After all, the earth will turn, and the darkness will ebb and flow, and our days will continue on. Without this place, without this time. So why do we gather? Couldn't we all be sleeping? Or hiking? Or making pancakes? Maybe some of us are right now. Instead, we have gathered again to make this place, this space, in person and online, holy with our presence and our love. To make this place home with our hard work and our hearts. Let us give thanks for this extraordinary blessing. The gathering together of separate, unique individuals as one whole, one body, one church. Come and let us worship together. Now, before we get started, I'm so excited this morning because for the past 3 weeks we have gathered and Kevin has played and sang for us, and maybe we've had one other person sing as we have for about 20 months. And this Sunday we're bringing back hymn singing. I invite you, I noticed one person is not wearing a mask, so I remind you to put your mask back on. Sometimes we all need reminders, no worries. But this morning we're bringing back congregational singing, and that is one of the things that I have missed most in our gatherings, is the singing together, is sharing our voices together, the sound that comes from singing together. And so this morning we sing a medley of "We Gather Together" and "We Sing Now Together." I invite you who are here to rise and join in singing in body, rise in body or in spirit to join in singing. The words will be on your screen, and of course, please keep your mask on.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We sing now together our song of thanksgiving, rejoicing in goods which the ages have wrought, for life that enfolds us and helps and heals and holds us, and leads beyond the goals which our forebears have once sought. We sing of community now in the making, in every far continent, region, and land, with those of all races, all times and names and places. We pledge ourselves in covenant firmly to stand. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
That was lovely. Please be seated. Or I guess, actually remain risen. We haven't done this in so long, I'm rusty. I invite you to remain risen for our chalice lighting, and then after that, our covenant.
Our Chalice Lighting words this morning are from Lois E. Van Leer. We light this chalice not because we must, but because we can. We may. We light this chalice not because we have the truth, but because we each come bearing and seeking many truths. We light this chalice in connection across culture, distance, class, and language. We light this chalice that our religion may be a beacon. We light this chalice to kindle our hearts and our minds.
And now I invite you to join me in saying our covenant words. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto. Please be seated.
Good morning. Trying to move a few things. Good morning. Welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Linda Fitzgerald, and I'm your worship associate here this morning. I'm so happy to welcome you in person and virtually to our service today. For 65 years, Emerson has been a beacon of liberal religion in the West San Fernando Valley. We acknowledge we are located on the land of Chumash, Tongva, and Kizh, people's land which remains part of their lasting identity and heritage. Our existence as a spiritual community can never fully be understood without appreciating the depth of loss of their land in generations past and the enduring hopes for renewed vitality of these cultures in years to come. It's good. Emerson is a welcoming congregation and a sanctuary of love. We're happy that you are joining us today, whether it's your first time or your 500th. You belong here. It is good to be back worshiping in person here in our sanctuary after being online since March 2020. And although it isn't our first Sunday back, it still feels different. After so long apart, we may be a bit awkward in coming together, wanting to hug, but offering an elbow bump. We are older and somewhat fragile, and we have missed each other. We have witnessed such political division and social divisions, political and social divisions in our lives, and have been through personal challenges that remind us that we need each other. We need joy and laughter and comfort and support, and to remember that we belong together. Yet the way we gather has changed. Postponed memorial services, the belated wedding celebration, the hybrid worship service. We have changed the language of how we meet and why we meet. In years past, I've been a worship associate along with Tracy Davis for our annual bread communion, which we always held the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Many of us baked bread to share among the congregation. I remember Paul Madavi Bernstein's banana nut jalapeno chocolate chip loaf, and Ruth Armand Trout's zucchini bread, Reverend Matthew's vegan gluten-free herb bread, and Bonnie Norwood's persimmon walnut bread. Last year, we ate our bread at home on Zoom. And this year, we are foregoing the bread communion altogether. I'm hoping that we will have that service again next year. While I'm grateful to start singing hymns this Sunday, I wonder when we will bring back the time in our service where we all get up and greet each other, our neighbors. I miss our boisterous greetings and laughter. I miss good chaos. The pandemic has changed the way we gather and how we define gathering. And as we continue the progress of coming back together, this morning we explore what it means to gather, to reflect on how it is that we want to gather, and why we gather. And I can tell you this, it is good to be together.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
One more time.
We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here, for the far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Each month, we take up a special collection for an organization doing good work in our community. This month, we take up a collection for the West Valley Food Pantry. Now, those of you who joined us in person before the pandemic know that we used to, every Sunday, invite people to bring non-perishable goods, canned goods, what have you, and we would drop them off, and the kids would come and bring them up and put them into the baskets, and then a volunteer would take them over to the West Valley Food Pantry. And we haven't done that in a very long time. And I look forward to the time we're able to do that again, hopefully in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, though, we do a special collection. The West Valley Food Pantry has been serving over 4,000 people a month who are food insecure, including people who are homeless, families, elderly people living on a fixed income. And of course, their service has become even more vital during the pandemic, a time when many people have struggled financially. Contributions can be made at donate.emersonuuc.org or via the Give Plus mobile app by selecting Special Offering. Or you can make out a check to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church or Emerson UU Church or just EUUC and write West Valley Food Pantry in the memo. And so for those of you in person, the offering basket is outside on that table by the door just in the lobby, or if you're joining us online, you could mail that check to our church office. And so however you are giving this morning, I invite you to please give generously.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
I invite you to join me now in a spirit of meditation or prayer, to just drop down into the space, into this moment. Maybe that means sitting up straight, putting your feet on the ground, or closing your eyes, or softening your gaze. Finding your breath in and out. Here in this space, we are gathered, called by our sense of urgency or duty, or the longing for community, called to be together on this day. Here in this space, we are gathered, called to hold ourselves accountable to our values, to remind ourselves of those hopes and dreams and possibilities for which sometimes in the rough and tumble world it can be hard to hold on to belief. Here in this space, we are gathered, called to do our part in weaving a web of human community. Here in this space, some of us have come in pain. To those who are dealing with issues of health or with loss, we pray, we wish for courage and healing. Let us pause, allowing people to speak into this space or type into the chat, and hold gently all the concerns, named and unnamed, that are gathered in this space this day. Gail. And in the complexities of community, it is right that in this space, some have come with joy bubbling in their heart. May we rejoice together, remembering the wisdom that says joys are multiplied when shared. May we remember gratitude for warmth, thankfulness for sunshine, appreciation for the simple tastes of whatever food our lives and bodies let us choose. Here in this space, we are called to weave the web of human community. May we pause and lift up aloud in the chat or simply in your heart at least one blessing, one joy, no matter how small, that has touched our life this week. For good gatherings, cooling weather. For singing together. May our sharing be a blessing on our hearts, on this community. And may this blessing extend outward to grace the wider world.
All this joy,
all this joy,
all this sorrow,
all this sorrow,
all this promise,
all this promise,
all this pain,
all this pain,
such is life,
such is
being,
such is being,
such is spirit, such is love.
such is love.
This reading is by Marta Valentin. In gatherings we are stirred like the leaves of the fall season, rustling around sacred trees, tossed hither and yon, until we come to rest together, quietly, softly. We come to gather strength from each other. We come to give strength to each other. We come to ask for strength from the Spirit of all that is and is not. When our hearts sing or when they frown, it is the way of compassion telling us to give. It is the way of peace telling us to share our gifts. For we are happiest and most powerful when love is made apparent in and through us. Spirit of the circle that is love, as we twirl in this dance that is life, we give thanks for reminding us each day of our task of ministering to each other with a searching glance, of safe touch, a generous smile, a thoughtful word. Thank you for reminding us that we are always building our beloved comunidad. Thank you for reminding us that through our covenant with you, we covenant with each other and are made whole. In gratitude, we celebrate with open hearts and minds. We discover who we are, separate from each other and within each other. In this circle that holds all life, may we ever work toward widening its boundaries until there are none.
This past Thursday, of course, was one of the major holidays of the calendar year here in America. Thanksgiving, the day when families often get together to share a big meal with one another and express gratitude for what they have in their lives. And we have lots of gatherings throughout the year, but Thanksgiving, it's one of the big ones in our society. And for me, the Thanksgiving that I had at my parents' house felt both familiar and different after this pandemic. I guess not quite after the pandemic, but towards the tail, perhaps long tail end of it. And it was a large gathering, 23 people, which was a normal size for one of these gatherings, but after a year and a half of small gatherings or no gatherings, it felt a little strange to have that many people gathered together. And it also felt wonderful and familiar. The controlled chaos of last-minute food prep, the football game that was turned on, which 2 or 3 people watched and everyone else ignored. My brother got his guitar out, and some people gathered around to sing and make music, while others broke off into conversation, talking to new people and others whom they hadn't seen in a while. And of course, the excellent food. I have to say, and I've mostly only lived in California, but I'm really grateful to have grown up in California for the California-style Thanksgivings. And yet other aspects were different. For safety reasons, we ate dinner outside rather than indoors. And, well, it turns out I liked eating outside more. And I now hope that that can be a new tradition that will stick whenever the weather's good enough. We had friends who joined us instead of attending their normal Thanksgiving gathering. One who was being hosted by someone whose family was almost entirely unvaccinated and wouldn't commit to eating outside. Other changes had nothing to do with the pandemic, like one friend's mom who could not join us because her health had declined. Or my best friend and his brother who came along with their partners because their parents had moved to Florida. And so it was a day of old and new, of changing traditions. But of course, this tradition had already changed somewhat from the more typical one. You know, when my parents started inviting friends over for Thanksgiving every year, some 35 years ago, rather than flying back to St. Louis to be with their families. And so the big part of this, the reason for this gathering in particular every year, is for the folks who don't have family in the area to come and celebrate and create a different community, a chosen family, perhaps. Last year was actually the only year that I've had a, quote, traditional Thanksgiving where it was just my family, my wife and daughter and my parents and my brother. And for me, it didn't feel quite right until some of our regular guests hopped on Zoom and we all talked over dessert. But this year, mostly you could tell just how grateful people were to get back together and resume this tradition. And it was a wonderful gathering. And I think a big part of that was the intentionality that went into planning the gathering. The coordinating of dishes so that we got a good spread and not 5 cranberry sauces. And so that there were plenty of options for the vegan and vegetarian guests. Or beginning the meal with the Thanksgiving address of the Haudenosaunee people, also known as the Iroquois Confederacy. With each of us going around the table, each person with a slip of paper containing their words to say, that allowed us to ground our meal first by giving thanks for the natural world which sustains us and which we are a part. Or my parents getting out the game catchphrase, which has become our traditional after-meal game. And then there was the toast. A toast where we welcomed newcomers and the regulars, and that also acknowledged what we had all been through over the past 20 months, and spoke to the gratitude for this ever-changing gathering. And it was in paying attention to those details that helped that gathering be something that felt special and not just any old gathering. And I think it really behooves us to pay attention to how and why we gather, especially as we come back from a time of not gathering together, to think about why it is, how and why we are gathering. And the person who really got me thinking about all of this is Priya Parker, author of The Art of Gathering, How We Meet and Why It Matters. In it, she writes about how to hold gatherings, from parties to meetings and weddings, that are memorable and worthwhile. She says the biggest mistake we make when we gather is we assume that the purpose is obvious. The reason that we're gathering for a birthday, the reason that we're gathering for a birthday is to celebrate a birthday, or a wedding is to get married. These forms take over our need to actually first say, why are we doing this in the first place? And when you don't actually first just ask, why are we doing this? Gatherings tend to be either irrelevant, boring, or repetitive. Last weekend, we had another gathering for my daughter's 6th birthday party. And in some ways, it felt like a normal kid's birthday party. Kids at the park running around, playing on the playground, playing games, cupcake, a piñata. And after the year we had just been through, it felt great. But it wasn't just an opportunity to celebrate my daughter's 6th birthday. It was also an opportunity for the kids to just play with one another again. You know, these kids, a lot of them are still learning how to be together. They haven't had many experiences around large groups of kids for over a year and a half. And so just having that unstructured social time was so important. And when we were figuring out who to invite, we were thinking about trying to make sure there was an age range. It's been interesting. I think part of it has been the pandemic, but you know, I remember as a kid, most of my birthday parties, you always had people within maybe like one grade of you, grade younger, grade older. But at my daughter's birthday, she was kindergartners, but there was 1st and 2nd and 3rd graders. And I think part of it is that because they were all separate for so long and not making those one-on-one connections in those earlier years, the kids who were in 1st grade are just as new to the school as the kids in kindergarten. And the kids in 2nd grade, well, they didn't even have a full year together. And so it was really sweet to see these kids coming together across different ages, but also trying to be intentional to make sure that there was an age range and that there were more than just 1 or 2 boys and a bunch of girls. And so that was sweet when the kindergarten boy started playing with the 3rd grader soccer. But it was also an opportunity for parents to just hang out and get to know each other, because so many of us haven't had the chance to gather either, to meet other parents and to talk about how things have been for us and for our kids, what we've been through over the past couple years. And so I really valued that time, and it was great to just be with people. So after this time we've been through where gathering has been so difficult, it's so important to think about, to consider why it is we choose to gather and how we do so. Priya Parker says, I see people in this moment of deep upheaval, where bar mitzvahs keep getting canceled, and weddings keep getting canceled, and book fairs keep getting canceled and rescheduled and put into hybrid and then into virtual and then into this. And when we don't actually pause and first just kind of throw up our hands in exasperation and also belly laugh, like, what a mess. And rather than pretending it's not a mess, and being far from the community or your people, whoever those people are, community is actually opening up and saying, what a mess. And welcome to this mess. And I want to be in this mess with you. And to me, she continues, having a similar ritual, that similar form as from the before times, unless it's deeply conscious and everyone wants to do it, it's invisibilizing an entire transformation that we each have been through, individually and collectively. Part of what we're doing now here at Emerson is figuring out how to move through this mess together. Gathering is a sacred act, says Parker. You're asking people to spend their time with you in a specific way. And it is an art, and it's a way to actually ask what is worthy of our time. And joy, right, is worthy of our time. Humor, release, is worthy of our time. Productive conflict is worthy of our time. And how do we create the conditions and the setup so that people are saying a true yes, that they also agree that this is a worthy way to spend their time? Now, as a church, I think we already think about why we're gathering together and what the purpose of community is. It's something that we talk about in worship services, why we gather, why it's important. And we come to church for different reasons, to meet some need for ourselves, to meet some need in our world. And why we gather from week to week, or month to month, or year to year may change for each of us. It might be to celebrate some joy, because joys are multiplied when shared. To find comfort for a loss, so that we need not bear it alone. To find hope when times are tough. To seek deeper truths, because we know when we come together and share our truths, we learn new things. To strive to become our highest selves. To join together in the work of justice making, because we are stronger together. To help build the sort of community we would like to see replicated in this world. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we don't just generally get together just because that's what you're supposed to do. To avoid going to hell, say. You got to go to church, otherwise you'll go to hell. We come here because we choose to. And so our congregation's life is built around offering opportunities for these in worship, in small group ministries, in our justice work, in potlucks or coffee hours. And now, in this time of change, I have some curiosity about what it means to be a community of people who gather both online and in person. How do you do a bread communion when those online cannot partake in the bread baked by those present? What about the way we turn out all the lights on Christmas Eve and the room is illuminated by the candles we carry? How do we celebrate that together? And that's part of what we're doing, is trying to figure it out. Figuring out our way through this mess that we find ourselves in together. Some of it may be easier. I think there may be committee meetings that continue to happen online for the foreseeable future. One thing I personally love about having meetings online is that I can have dinner with my family on those nights rather than walking down to the taqueria and just grabbing a burrito because I have to stay here at church. But I wonder particularly about how to connect with people who are joining us online, welcoming you more deeply into this community. Because I can't just walk up and say, hi, hello, nice to meet you during the welcome or after the service. How are you today? Tell me about yourself. What questions do you have? And so that's been the challenge, really, of gathering online. It's been nice to have our virtual coffee hours after the service to get to know different people. I've really appreciated that, seeing people have conversations with folks they might never have had conversations with. And I miss those one-on-one conversations. And also how to kind of integrate people really just into the community. When still, I have to say I'm kind of surprised. I understand that on one hand, but I'm kind of surprised there continue to be more people joining online than in person. And I know that will change, that more people, as they feel more comfortable, and maybe after they see that, we're singing hymns in the sanctuary, maybe I've been missing that and would love to come. So yes, we'll be singing hymns in the sanctuary next Sunday. But I've been thinking about how to integrate people into this congregation, and we actually have a new member service coming up in 2 weeks where we welcome newly joined members to our congregation. And so if you're interested in becoming a member, I invite you to reach out to me after the service or to send me an email, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that, what that means, and whether that's right for you at this moment. And so we have to keep thinking about how we gather and why we gather, so it doesn't just turn into something routine. How do we welcome new folks? How do we draw that circle wider and make space for new folks to bring their whole selves to this congregation? I love the idea, personally, of kind of reiterating and trying new things and constantly growing and changing and adapting. That's how we stay fresh and vital. Responding to things as they come up. And another change that's coming up soon is that in a few months, or in a month, I'm going to be starting my sabbatical. And so I'm going to be off for a while. And so the part of what the congregation is going to have to do is figure out, there's some things that I've done that I do during this time that, well, I'm not going to be doing. We're going to be we'll have a sabbatical minister, Joshua Berg, who we're very excited about, and is actually going to be joining me for the service next Sunday. So he'll be here if you want. That's another great opportunity to come out if you want to have a chance to meet him before he starts actually as our sabbatical minister. But it's only part-time, and so there's only so much that he's going to be able to do, things that I do that he won't do. And so what is it that we do during this time? What is it that you all do during this time? You know, we talk about shared ministries in this congregation, and it's true. Like, the ministries of this church are not held by the minister. Some of them are, but some of them are held by the congregation. And so I think this is a wonderful opportunity to explore, maybe to step in a little deeper or step up and figure out, well, how can I contribute? What can I give? What can I offer? What can I bring? And it may be a time to look at what things can maybe be set aside. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in the coming weeks. But it's a time to think, as things change, about how we gather and why we do things. During this pandemic, there's been a lot that we missed. Things that we couldn't do. Some things that we still haven't done. But there may also be things that we didn't miss so much. Or other things that we found during the pandemic that we discovered that we want to carry with us into the time that comes. And so in this moment of transition between one way of being into something new entirely, it is a perfect time to think about, to envision, to reimagine what it means to gather. To think about why it is we gather and how it is we gather, because we want to have gatherings that are meaningful, not routine, not rote, not repetitive, but ones that bring joy, excitement, comfort, release, whatever it may be. In this challenging moment, as we figure out what we do next, that opportunity to think about, to reflect on what we want to do next is truly a blessing. And I hope we take advantage of it as much as possible. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, Break Not the Circle. The words, of course, will be on your screen.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes embracing all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will the human bonds remain unbroken? Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race and nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
I invite you to remain risen for our As I extinguish the chalice and share our benediction words, I invite you to, if you feel so inclined, to just reach your hands out to spread that energy of welcome to the other people in this room, to feel that energy coming back to you. An adaptation, a different way of gathering when we cannot shake hands. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other, our services to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving.